Hello everyone, this is chapter 12, last part 4. We're going to move to slide number... Okay. We'll be on slide number 19. Okay, so let's talk about consumption smoothing, and also let's talk about self-insurance. So we learned about social insurance. This is government and insurance markets versus self-insurance. So how much of consumption smoothing is going on, right? Self-insurance basically means that we are using our own private resources to smooth our consumption. Okay, examples are for unemployment insurance, right? We have U.S. federal government unemployment insurance that is administered by individual states. So this is income to workers who have lost their jobs. So if there's no social or government insurance, unemployment insurance, to smooth your consumption, then one could, right? Imagine there's no federal government unemployment insurance. You can draw on your own savings, borrow either in collateralized forms or uncollateralized forms of loans. So with a collateral, like using your home or vehicle, this and that, or without that, you can take out a loan from various lenders, right? Some people actually were able to get some money from their 401ks during COVID pandemic in March, April. The early withdrawal fees were waived, okay? Or you can have another family member increase their earnings, right? So your spouse can get a job, or your sibling, or the father can get a job if the mother loses a job, okay? Or you can receive transfers from extended family. So, it's easy to think like, oh, government has no role. We want minimal government role, if you think about it. But the role of government becomes magnified during the crisis, time of crisis. Okay, so you can receive transfers from extended family, friends, organizations. You can go to church groups for certain helps, or ask your friends for loans. So this is all you got. So what happens is that when you have unemployment insurance, whenever you have unemployment insurance, social insurance by government, this is the public provision. Or you could do self-insurance. This is a private provision. So public intervention, when government provides social insurance, it can crowd out private provision. So there may be no consumption smoothing game or justification for government to intervene. So if people can draw on their savings, borrow loans, borrow through taking out loans, ask their family members to work, and borrow money from their friends and family, there's no role of government. And actually government intervention can lower private provision, okay? But you must remember also there are efficiency costs of raising government revenue when we have this social insurance. So there is some crowding out, but as you can see, social insurance has an important place, especially during unpredictable big events, okay? There's something called unemployment insurance replacement rate. This is the ratio of benefits to pre-employment earnings. So in Texas, it's about $552 per week maximum unemployment insurance. So there are some people, if you make $10,000 a month, that only replaces a little bit of your income, right? It replaces 20%. So government pays you $2,000, but you were making $10K, okay? You're unemployed now, so that's the replacement rate is only 20%. So let's talk about the consumption smoothing role of social insurance. Importance of social insurance programs, folks. For consumption smoothing, it depends on three things. Three of them are the biggest ones, at least. Number one is the predictability of the event. Social insurance is very, very useful for unpredictable events such as coronavirus. If you ask me in February, there will be a, do you think there will be a virus that will sweep the, entire world? Well, I would have never guessed it, right? So it was an unpredictable event. Cost of event determines the role of social insurance. Highly costly events, unpredictable events call in for social insurance. Also, availability of other forms of consumption smoothing. If there are no other ways of consumption smoothing, then you're going to need social insurance as well. Let's talk about the problem with insurance, moral hazard. What does moral hazard mean? So, when governments intervene in insurance markets, moral hazard may be an issue. So please know what moral hazard is, okay? Moral hazard may be an issue. So adverse behavior that is encouraged by insuring against an adverse event. So if you think about it, I've always had pickup trucks in the past, 3 of them, and I put on like a front bumper guard. Is it called bumper guard or engine guard? So what happens is that once I have that, I feel very safe, right? Even if I hit something. So it's protecting me against any front collisions, right? It does protect me against many types of, front collisions. So I felt a little bit more, safe. So it kind of increases my probability of getting into an adverse event. All right. So if you insure yourself against an adverse event, the probability of that adverse event increases. Okay. So let's talk about workers' compensation. So workers' compensation is a compensation you get if you're injured at work. Let's say you're not permanently disabled, right? But you're still injured. You are eligible. You may be eligible for workers' compensation. So obviously we all want to insure against injury on the job. Well, it's hard to determine if the injury was really on the job or not. Okay, so let's say I slipped and fell and I hurt my wrist, but it could be some pre-existing thing that happened at the gym. So it's hard to determine. Insurance payouts for workers' comp programs will be medical costs and compensation for also lost wages, right? I'm out of work for months. So being injured on the job may look attractive, okay? So program may actually encourage individuals to fake injury, all right? However, moral hazard, I just want you to remember, some people keep telling me, well, welfare is bad, this and that, because people abuse it. Well, there's always going to be some people who will abuse any system you have, but we can't just not have social insurance programs because there's a moral hazard issue. Okay, moral hazard is inevitable cost of insurance, private or social. We increase the incidence of bad events by simply insuring against them. All right. So, what determines moral hazard? It depends on how easy it is to detect whether the adverse event has happened. So, with life insurance, moral hazard problem is very little because how am I going to kill myself, right? For insurance, then I'm not going to benefit it. Plus, suicide is not covered by life insurance policies. So we watch all these movies, Hallmark, I don't think does those kind of movies, but like people faking their own death to help their family, right? It's very far-fetched. So let's, how easy though it is to detect whether adverse event happens. So with death, it's easy. With unemployment, it's easy too. It's about being laid off. How easy is it to change one's behavior to establish the adverse event? So, this is also very important. How easy to detect, how easy to change one's behavior. Okay, social insurance. If you look at social insurance, we have 4 types of moral hazard. Number 1, reduce precaution against entering the adverse state. So if I have workers' comp, maybe I'm not going to be very careful with my forklift, okay, at work. The second one is increase odds of entering the adverse state. So I'm not going to take precautions, and the odds of entering the adverse state is going to go up. Increase the expenditure when the adverse state happens. So it could be such that you were in a car accident, you had a whiplash. If you didn't have insurance, maybe you weren't going to get some care, right? You had neck pain, but it wasn't too bad. You were telling yourself, you know what, just walk it off. I mean, I sound crazy, but it's not crazy. If you don't have insurance, you may feel like, you know what, I'll be okay. But if you have insurance, you may start thinking about, hey, I have this neck pain. Let me go check it out. Maybe it will come back to me down the road when I'm older, which always does. So this happened to me. Actually, I had full insurance and I had a major accident. I mentioned in the classroom, T-bone type of accident. Some car hit me from my side. This happened to me twice by 2 people who ran on red light, actually, both times. And then I had insurance both times. First time, I just didn't know what to do. But second time, I actually used my insurance and got the treatment, full treatment for my back issues, okay? The last one is the supply responses to insurance against adverse state. So it could be such that this actually was, what I had. So my doctor, chiropractor, was like, well, you have insurance, you might as well use it, right? After the accident. So I was like, okay. So it was an expensive treatment plan, but it did help me. I believe that it helped me. But again, supplier can be like, oh, you have insurance, let's get you treated. All right, so let's put it all together. We will have social insurance, government, and insurance industry. But what's the optimal social insurance? Does government have to insure us against everything? So government, for instance, with the flood insurance, government has FEMA insurance. It does not pay for people's premiums at all, but government provides a flooding insurance to everybody. Affordable. It's still expensive, but it's affordable than it would have been. Okay, so that's an example. It's not government handing out insurance. Sometimes it's just requiring people to buy insurance. So 4 basic lessons. Number 1, individuals value insurance and would ideally like to smooth their consumption. Nobody wants to be like, yeah, let's take risk. Number 2, insurance markets may fail to emerge because of adverse selection. Adverse selection means insured people know more about their situation than insured. So there's asymmetric information, and then only careless people or high risk people may want to buy insurance. Number 3, private consumption smoothing mechanisms may be available. But we have to study the consumption smoothing versus crowding out of existing self-insurance. So if you have private consumption smoothing already, you're already borrowing from your friends whenever you're in time, but government comes in and tells you, okay, we're providing some help. Maybe that will crowd out what you were already doing. You were drawing on your savings. So government is crowding out that private insurance. And the last one, number 4, is expanding insurance encourages moral hazard. So these 4 lessons have policy implications. Number 1, social insurance should be partial. Full insurance encourage adverse behavior. Social insurance means government and the insurance industry. Number 2, social insurance should be more generous for unpredictable long-term events when there's less room for private consumption smoothing. So unpredictable, expensive long-term events when there's no many chances of private consumption smoothing. And more moral hazard should lead to less insurance, less public social insurance. Well, this is the end of our chapter, folks.